Thank you. And I heard the clock strike 6 o'clock, so I'm going to call to order this regularly scheduled meeting of the New Bern Redevelopment Commission. And can we get started, Seb, with a roll call?
Absolutely. Commissioner Sharon Bryant.
Here.
Jimmy Dillon.
Here.
Sarah Proctor. Leander Morgan. Steve Strickland.
Here.
Julius Parham.
Here.
Barry Wallace.
On
Beth
his way.
Walker.
I'm here.
Kip Tharagoy.
Here.
And none of our ex officios are currently present. Madam Chairperson, we do have a quorum.
Oh, thank you. Then we will get started with our next agenda item, which is approving the agenda. Everyone received, I just want to make sure everyone received their packets via email. Is that an acceptable way to receive them? Yeah. And you've had a chance to look over it, I trust. And can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Got it.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries, and we will move on to the approval of the minutes. Now, I do believe we need to approve the minutes all separately. Is that correct?
So long as the motion is unanimous, you can do them all together.
Okay. So I just want to make sure everybody knows we have two sets of minutes in our packet, the November and the December meeting, and those may have been new to you. Hope you had time to review those. The other, the closed session minutes, we looked at and corrected, and so we have closed session for October, November, and December. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And are we in a place, I think we're in a place where we can just, if there's no amendments or any contradictions, we can approve them.
So moved.
Have a motion
Second.
in a second. Have a motion and a second to approve all of these sets of meetings, November, December, and our closed session for those months as well. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Motion carries. And now we will go through our guiding principles. I'll start with you, Mr. Strickland, Commissioner Strickland.
Lost my spot on the agenda. Hold on one second. Past, present, future, equal time.
Respect other opinions.
Listen to build consensus.
Share accurate information and public perception.
Stay focused, be action-oriented.
Believe.
Get the best one tonight, Commissioner Dillahunt. Believe.
Well placed.
All right. And thank you, Commissioner Morgan.
I am here. Please excuse my tardiness.
That's okay. We're glad to have you.
Trying to find a place to park,
Probably. All right. So now we are at the point in the agenda for the public comments. I would like to remind whoever is speaking tonight that we have a limit of 4 minutes. And I have a request up here. Ms. Ruth Cooper, do you want to speak?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here. I am Ruth Cooper. I live in Trent Woods, but I'm a member of the Duffyfield Phoenix Project. And this year we bought $400 worth of spring blooming bulbs. And this fall, 6 of us planted 200 daffodil bulbs and 100 grape hyacinth bulbs in a raised bed in Henderson Park near Chapman Street. You know, Carrie Warren met with us and said we could plant them in that bed and it wouldn't interfere with the city's mowing or anything. We got the fertilizer and bulbs planted and mulched in a little over an hour. And I also planted some bulbs in some people's yards in Duffyfield. In May, when these flowers are blooming, we'll have our semi-annual Duffyfield cleanup. It'll be May 4th, the same day as the Craven County Clean Sweep. We're hoping to have more neighborhood involvement and get a lot done. Last time, I forget her name right now, I think it's Pam Hawkins from Clean Sweep, brought some Boy Scouts. They were very helpful, and we gave out a raffle ticket for every big bag of litter you picked up. and they could get a chance to win little $5 Walmart gift cards, and I believe all of the Boy Scouts won gift cards. So we're hoping to get the Redevelopment Commission involved if you would like to be part of our litter pickup. I talked with Brenda Blanco about a very overgrown and heavily littered lot owned by the city and county on the northeast corner of Main and Pavey Streets. She emailed George Childs about it, and a Public Works crew cleaned it up and leveled it the next day. So that lot, which was so badly overgrown, you couldn't even get all the litter out, but it's cleared off now. And it's for sale if anybody, anybody that wants that lot right there on Main and Pavey. I've also reported other weedy, overgrown lots, and the nuisance abatement people have had them mowed down. Besides being an environmental advocate, I'm an RN and health advocate, and I don't think I was at your last meeting, but I haven't heard anything lately about the proposed Health and Wellness Center to be built on the northeast corner of Main and Bloomfield Streets. I'm sure y'all are working on it, but I just haven't heard about it. So just thanks for all that you do.
And we thank you, Ms. Cooper, for all that you do. Thank you for giving us that update, and we look forward to seeing those bulbs come up in May.
Yeah, I'll take pictures of them.
It sounds wonderful.
Mayor, I just need to ask Ms. Cooper a couple of questions. I just need to get her information before she leaves.
Sure.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
May I have your information before you leave? We will be working in partnership with you, and we just need to get those dates. We've also been talking to some fraternities and some sororities for the community cleanup. We'll discuss all of that when I speak to you, but please don't leave without me getting your information.
Absolutely.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, thank you. The next item on the agenda is item number 7, and it is in consideration for amending the construction time restriction for the 209 Bryan Street property. And I believe we have Mr. and Mrs. Diggs here tonight to answer any questions that we might have, or do you have something that you would like to say to us? Or just be available for answering questions? I think everybody is aware of this from our last meeting, that this is a situation where, Jamie, I'm going to get you to help me with the appropriate terms, but the claim, they're still trying to clear the title
Yes.
of the property.
So in your December meeting, this property was brought to your attention several months ago. Mr. Diggs and Mr. Carlo went through the process to acquire this property. Included in that conveyance was a restrictive covenant for them to commence the construction of a residential dwelling structure within a certain amount of time, and it was 12 months. And Mr. Diggs is shaking his head that I'm correct in that. Thereafter, as Mr. Diggs and Mr. Carlo did their due diligence to close on the property and try to get title insurance to protect their investment, their council determined there was a defect in title. And as we talked about last month, that defect is not unique to the Diggs. It runs with the property, that apparently in the foreclosure process, an heir was not notified, and now there is a potential defect in the title. In order for the purchaser to get title insurance to protect their investment, that defect in title must be remedied. Staff has included a memorandum dated January 2nd in your packet that you've had an opportunity to review that answers some of the questions that came out of your dialogue at your last meeting. And I think from my conversation with Mr. Diggs and the information included in the memorandum, his request is that you remove the restrictive covenant requiring him to commence construction within a certain amount of time due to the length of time that it would take to go through the process to be able to quiet title. It's my understanding that he's consulted with and or retained an attorney to assist him, which is a substantial financial investment already, and it is before you all today to consider removing that restriction or amending that restriction. And obviously, because this is a material change in the conveyance, ultimately we would need to seek approval from the Board of Aldermen as well. But the first step is for you all to evaluate Mr. Diggs' request. And there is a resolution to that effect included in your packet.
And after reviewing this information, it does seem like the majority of the time that the Diggs are asking for is based on how much legal time it will take to do that.
Correct. There's a period of time that they need to wait to even begin to file their action, and then for that action to go from start to finish is an additional interval of time.
No, they will still go ahead and close on the property after the alderman.
As indicated in, I think, the response that Mr. Diggs responded to in the memorandum, his plan is to be able, if the restriction is removed and the Board of Aldermen again approves this sale without that condition, they are in a position to close immediately, is what I'm being told. And Mr. Diggs is shaking his head in the affirmative.
You can come out.
Yes, we for 16 months or longer, I've pursued that particular lot on 209 Bryan Street, and we are prepared to close as soon as possible on that property. We still have a desire to build on that property. But under the circumstances, to invest, thousands of dollars into the process of getting the title clear so we can protect our financial interests in it, it's going to take some time. And it's not that I'm trying to delay for financial reasons, it's just a legal process that I have no control over, or we have no control over.
Quick question. Was this, Mr. Diggs, he was the only one that actually bid on the property, correct? Am I right?
I feel comfortable in saying that he was the final highest bidder. I'm not sure if there was any intervening bids. I just
No
don't
one
recall.
else bid it on it.
No one has bid, so, okay. I mean, if no one else bid on it and there's no push, there's nobody behind his back, nobody's trying to run and take his property, I don't see a problem with it giving the extension myself. That's just my one vote.
Well, there were two things. There was giving an extension, and there was eliminating in total the commitment to build a house at some point in time. Yeah,
I say that again then?
there's an extension. What he's asking for is we totally eliminate the requirement that a home be built on that lot.
Within a certain period of time.
Just a time.
So,
It's just the time, not the covenant.
Not that he wouldn't build a house.
Well,
so the covenants that are included in your packet, there is an Exhibit B, which are the restrictive covenants that would attach to the deed. And there are 3 sections. 1, that the covenant shall be administered by the Redevelopment Commission or its successor in interest. 2, that any residential dwelling unit not occupied by the owner must be sold or rented to persons of low to moderate income. And in the event that the dwelling unit is not occupied by the owner, is not rented by persons of low to moderate income, title of the property shall revert back to the Redevelopment Commission. That is what is being proposed for your consideration tonight.
yeah, I thought that somewhere I read that he was asking for to remove any building time frame whatsoever.
The time frame, but not the requirement that he is to build a residential structure.
So 15 years from now,
He is asking to remove the time frame.
he's asking to remove the time frame. That's what I'm getting at. And I guess what crossed my mind, we have somewhat of a definitive timeline for curing title at 32 months. And in keeping with our goals as a redevelopment commission, which is to create housing opportunities, that if we kept a time frame on the purchased property but extended it to 36 months from closing, which if he goes ahead and have to go through another couple months of this process to get to closing, then 36 months would start, and that would allow him 3 years basically to get title cleared, and then begin construction of a residence, which is our ultimate goal and the reason we sold the property to him to start with.
So what would be your recommendation on this? Is 3 years?
Yeah, that would be a thought.
Okay. From the time that he closes on the property?
Right. Then he starts construction within 3 years after that. And again, that gives him time to do the...
Right. So you're in the process of trying to close down?
The closing attorney still have the paperwork. I have not told the city I've forfeited the property. We're standing by to see what the
Okay.
commission's going to do.
Okay.
Let me
Okay.
ask you a question. What time are you asking for or looking for?
My request was because of the financial expenditures that we're going to have to place on the back end of clearing the title, I'm asking for you to remove the time frame. I still want to build on the property. I give you my word. I know word, the people say, what's the word worth? What's your word worth? But, you know, my original objective, the reason why I agreed to the 1 year, is because we wanted to move the new Bern as soon as possible to build on the lot. Because Bryan Street was going to be where we live. It was going to be our primary residence. That's why we were okay with 1 year time frame.
But still, I ask you, what's your time?
Well, my time, at this point, under the circumstances where I can't predict how long it's going to take to clear the title, my understanding from my closing attorney doing the research, the heir 5 years ago lived in New Mexico. Okay. So, and if that person's died, then we've got to track down that person's heirs. And if one of those heirs, over how many heirs he may or she may have, then we got to track down those heirs. So, I mean, me personally, I'm aware of a tract of land that's been in my family growing up in Chatham County, North Carolina, that's been on the heir property for a couple of decades because they can't track down all the heirs. And the families decide not even be bothered with it.
Okay, you partially answered my question, but I'm gonna ask you, after the title is cleared, how much time would it take
once the
you?
title's cleared, I get title insurance, I can move forward immediately on
Within a who?
immediately. Once
Where
the
you come
title is
legally?
cleared, I can move forward. I wouldn't hesitate with moving forward to getting anything built over there.
Within a year, you would say so?
Within the year of getting the title cleared?
I mean, within a year after the title is cleared? Yes, sir, yes, sir?
Yes.
2 years, 1 year?
A year? 2 years? But this is where I plead to the commission is that I'm the one that's risking making the financial risk. And for me to go out and spend $10,000 to clear this title and then get it back because it could be any unforeseen circumstances. My health could change, our health could change. That slowed the process down. Only to spend that money, and then to be penalized for not getting a foundation down within a set amount of time, it's a major financial loss for me. And I asked anybody on the panel tonight who would want to be on that, under the trigger like that, under the gun.
Let me ask you a question, if I may. So with KIPS, and just I'm trying to make sure I understand, the 3 years that you were speaking of would not start until after they closed, cleared title, everything had been cleared, and that was just a suggestion, not a recommendation.
No, it was something for us to kick
Right.
around. And
So we're saying after 36 months that we would be looking at least for some completion now. Why not, let's just, because we do live in the real world, take into account after they do close, clear, and everything is on the way, then why not revisit after 24 months if we see that we're not going to meet that 36-month threshold? Because we do live in the real world and your health could change, things could happen, but at least the title's clear, it's yours, you've closed, and something should have been started within that first year. If we get into the second year and there's still nothing that has taken place, then we have to look to say, hey, we may not have done our due diligence, and now we just have no time frame, and it can just go on and on and on.
Commissioner Morgan, let me just clarify a couple of points.
Yeah.
So the closing date would be 30 days from approval of the conveyance by the Board of Aldermen, okay?
Okay.
So if the board, let's just say for a hypothetical timeline, if you all were inclined to make some change to a deed restriction tonight, conceivably the board would consider approving this revised conveyance in February, okay? 30 days from that February meeting is when Mr. Diggs would have to close.
Okay.
What he is saying is a conservative estimate of the time that it will take for him to clear title is 30 to 6 months. That's his conservative estimate. He's also communicating the fact that if the heir that they've identified dies in that process, we may have a whole host of other heirs and more people he's got to track down, and that legal process could be extended. So I think what Commissioner Paragoy was saying is that that 36-month time frame to commence construction would begin at the time of closing. Am I understanding you correctly, Mr.
Yeah.
Paragoy? So that's what Mr. Paragoy was putting out for your consideration this evening, not 36 months after whenever
I understand that.
Mr. Diggs clears title.
I appreciate you clarifying that. Thank you.
And am I correct in hearing you say through what we've read that 32 months is sort of the minimum, and then it extends and expands from there?
That was based on the attorney we spoke with in Jacksonville. What was his name? Mr. Urick with Walt Bellamy and DeSomes out of Jacksonville. There's not many attorneys that practice in this particular field of practice. We contacted an attorney up in Elizabeth City. They didn't return the call. I guess the trial distance wasn't feasible. There's some recommendations made locally here. I did talk to a couple of them, but nobody took me up on it. And finally, we located the attorney down in Jacksonville, and talked with us and assisted. He's willing to work with us to get through this process. But we're talking thousands of dollars that I'm gonna have to invest in this, just to get a title clear.
And there is 2 phases in this process, and not, Jamie, one is getting all the affidavits signed to clear the title, and then it talked about the period of quiet.
So I think what the memorandum is forecasting, and I don't know what conversations he's had with his attorney, but according to the memorandum, he has to wait. They're essentially doing an adverse possession claim and tacking on to the length of time that the city and county had ownership to quiet title. So they're tacking on, and I think you have another year, I think 20 months, for that 7-year color of title claim. And then thereafter, after he meets that time requirement of 7 years, then he can begin his action to quiet title. I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, no, I thought it was a 2-phase process, adverse possession.
You're correct.
Well, and Commissioner Strickland?
Not that it's directly related, but it's relevant in the form of context. You did mention there was a second parcel involved in this.
Yes,
Where are we at with that second parcel right now?
I forfeited that property.
You forfeited that one.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
And it was a financial decision. We've looked at a couple of the lots off of, I guess that'd be the west side of town, the riverside area. And it was a financial decision I had to make. I didn't want to overextend myself, make promises I can't keep.
Right. Understand.
I just still have something for you all to talk about, that's all.
And I appreciate that. I feel like, what we've set as a precedent always involves some stipulations of, or requirements of how we want the land to be developed, and part of that is also a time frame. So I don't think it's a bad idea to keep a time frame, but I think we can amend the time frame. Unless there's some,
based on some situation that the buyer
right,
can't get around.
right.
Yeah.
The reversion clause, I believe, has a sentence at the end of it. It says that this will be the date unless the 2 parties agree to extend it in writing.
Yeah.
And we could add something like that to it, that Mr. Diggs, if something, he needs more time or so forth. Again, our objective, in my mind, was always to get a house.
Yeah.
And have a great citizen like Mr. Diggs living there
Right.
would be an asset to the community. So that's all what was driving my thoughts and my ideas was to be true to our goals as a redevelopment commission.
And if you all are inclined to include a time certain to commence construction, 32 months is a very conservative estimate. So if you're thinking about a number, you may want to think about a number that far exceeds 32 months.
About 48. Is that reasonable? I mean, that's another year over what I originally said. And that again, is being fair to Mr. Diggs, I think.
Mhm.
With the caveat that if something comes up and the title still hadn't been cleared and other issues come up, we talk about it again. Because he brings up a very good point.
Yeah.
You know, he's spent a lot of money already, and the fact that he clears the title and gives it back to us with a clear title, then we're the beneficiaries of that, and that's not quite fair to him either. So I would think that if we gave a time frame with the ability to renegotiate that per se, based on circumstances that may arise, maybe that's something we could talk about.
Any thoughts? Other commissioners? I'm being quiet.
I mean, that's a good thing, and I don't want to drag it on. I'll make a motion to accept the 48 months extension for Mr. Diggs.
And would we need to add to that, or is it already part of that clause, like you said, that?
Well, it's not currently a part of it. It would have to be, that sentence would have to be added.
So I
That
think,
it could be
Give me
renegotiated?
Give me clarity on it.
I think Commissioner Parham's motion is that you agree to modify the restrictive covenants contained in the previously executed deed with Mr. Diggs to allow the commencement of construction within 48 months from the date of closing, subject to approval by the Board of Aldermen.
Yes.
So the only thing that would be amended in the previously executed deed is the time frame by which construction has to begin. All other restrictions would remain in place.
Okay.
Was that your motion, Mr.
Yes,
Parham?
that's right. Thank you.
Can I ask a question on that?
Before, I think procedurally, we have a motion and a
I'll
second.
second the motion.
Okay, if you want to entertain any additional comments, this would be.
Yes.
Okay, so at this point in time, I want to ask too, can we, as part of that motion, add that it could be revisited? Like, if we get to the end of 48 months and the title's still not clear?
The language in the previously executed deed allows you to extend the time frame
Okay.
for any type of reversion by agreement between the parties.
Okay. Yes, go ahead, Mr. Diggs.
My concern with that clause is that no one here will be here in 48 months on this board. Is that correct?
Probably not.
Okay.
You might get more considerable.
But it's in the books.
And I think
Now,
it would be
so-
consistent with the
I
plan.
think it would be
continuing to
consistent
be.
plan. Like I kept saying, we want houses on the property.
I understand that. And for me as an investor, a property without a house on it is a liability to me.
Yeah.
Mm.
So I would like to work with you, but, you got this committee making a promise that will I get the same consideration after I spent $10,000 to clear this title?
But I would hope after 48 months you begin it.
I hope so
Yeah,
too,
yeah.
but there's no guarantees.
Yeah, right.
There's no guarantees. That's my concern.
Yeah.
In the spirit of being helpful, and I'll say this, Madam Chair, that if you all approve this change, Mr. Diggs still has the option to forfeit the property if it doesn't comport with his timeframes and objectives as a developer.
Mhm.
So if that were to occur, whoever would bid on the property next would be in the same circumstance. But you have a motion and a second.
I have a motion and a
Yeah,
second.
second.
And is that all the discussion from the commissioners? Do we need a roll call vote or
Yes,
roll
ma'am.
call vote for that?
And does everybody understand the motion that's on the floor? Seeing head shake, yes, okay.
All right. Steve Strickland,
Yes.
Sharon Bryant,
Yes.
Julius Parham,
Yes.
Beth Walker,
Yes.
Kip Farragut,
Yes.
Jimmy Dillon,
Yes.
Andrew Morgan.
Yes.
We have a passed motion.
Motion carries that the time frame will be extended to 48 months.
Subject to approval by the Board of Aldermen was the last part of his
No,
motion.
correct.
Subject to the approval of the Board of Aldermen. Thank you for that. Okay, the next thing on our agenda is the Housing Work Group report. I believe that's you, Commissioner Paragoy.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Okay, we started off the new year with a bang. Had a great meeting with Commissioner Strickland, Commissioner Walker, and myself, and Executive Director Howe. Main thing that we had referred to us was the request to purchase 808 and 810 Bern Street. The presentation was made at the last meeting, if you recall. And our recommendation is that the sale be initiated in the normal procedures, again with restrictive covenants that we've been putting on property, being that the residential structure will begin within 12 months of closing. Reversion clause, if the above is not started within 12 months, be included. And any residential dwelling not owner or family occupied must be sold or rented to a low or moderate income person, which was also in the deeds that we were sending that Mr. Diggs was under. And we added to that that no inoperable, unlicensed, junked, or stripped down vehicles, trailers, and boats may be stored on any portion of the property. Within the formal document, it's been wordsmithed as we requested by legal staff to not be so blunt, I guess, but to reflect the restrictions that we've used in the past, so that we have some consistency in how we approach these restrictions. But again, to get a house there, which is the intent of the purchaser, and to make sure that it doesn't become a home for any junk cars that we've spent 3 or 4 years trying to get rid of in Duffyfield. So that is the recommendation, that we approve the initiation of the upset bid process for 808 and 810 Bern Street.
Okay, that's the two lots together would probably make one lot, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, good, okay.
Yeah, one
Okay.
lot's about as wide as a driveway.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly, okay,
Yeah.
gotcha, okay. Okay, thank you.
And I will make that as a motion as part of this, that we do approve the initiation of the upset bid process for 808 and 810 Bern Street with the covenants that are shown in the information that has been presented to us.
And just so everyone is clear, in your packet, you received 2 resolutions, one for 808 and one for 810. And I'm understanding Mr. Paraguay's motion to include the adoption of both of those resolutions as it pertains to the subject properties being discussed.
Okay.
And I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion among the commissioners concerning that?
Go ahead, Steve.
Let's say just real quick procedurally, since technically we're still in the housing working group update, can we make that motion and go forward with that, or do you need to formally get down to the next step on the agenda?
If everybody wants to do it now, you can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This area that we're speaking of on Bern Street is probably one of the well-kept blocks in the redevelopment area. And I guess my concern is, and please tell me if, or correct me if I'm wrong, but do we have any kind of leeway on finding out the history of who's trying to own the property, who's purchasing the property, to maybe see if they have a history of junk cars or anything else on their property? Is that even something that this committee is privy to?
If I may, I would ask that the chair actually speak to that question. The chair and I spent a considerable time with Mr.
Situya?
I just know him as Tony, so I'm going to call him Mr. Tony.
Situya.
And we were invited into his home. He lives on Bern Street. And so, Madam Chair, if you wouldn't mind just speaking to the person doing the development, that would be really helpful.
Oh, yes, and this gentleman is also a contractor. He actually came before our board at our last meeting, I believe, or the one before that. You were probably not here to hear him, but that's okay. He wants his son to move into the house across the street, who also works in his construction business with him, and if his son needed to leave, he would want to rent it, keep it as a rental property, but we heard him and felt like it was a good idea that he was going to live right across the street from the property. You know, he has renovated his home, bought it in a very dilapidated condition, and then refurbished it, and he and his family, extended family, live there. It's very well-kept property, like you said.
Is this the gentleman who lives right beside the Omega Center?
Yeah.
In the Okay, I had met him, but my question, thank you, as long as you've made him, you feel comfortable.
Absolutely.
I just wouldn't want to take a chance on not knowing who we're selling to and not knowing, but you all have done the homework, and thank you. And I'm sorry I wasn't getting here.
That's okay.
Or last meeting, thank you.
And just as a point of clarity, we're initiating an upset bid process. So it could be that someone else makes a deposit and upsets the initial bid. And at the end of that process, if there are subsequent bids, you'll have an opportunity to accept or reject whoever that final highest bidder is. In thinking about whether you want to accept a bid or not, it's absolutely appropriate to consider the redevelopment project and whether you have a belief that the redeveloper has the capacity to carry out the project consistent with the goals and objectives of your plan.
Thank you for that, because I think myself, I lose sight of the fact that we're just initiating the upset bid process. And while we thought that was a very good project, if there's a higher bid that comes in, we will go through this process again of, if they win, that we would consider what they are going to build, correct?
The restrictions that you all are imposing will be a part of the notice for the upset bid.
That's
So
the key to it.
anyone who wants to consider upsetting the initial bid will do so subject to the conditions that are advertised, which are reflected in the resolution before you.
That's good.
So Robbie, to your question, we can have all the well wishes in the world and think very highly of the person that we're moving forward with, but someone else can come along as long as they're willing to agree to the clauses that are attached.
Yeah.
They can have a history of all the junk cars in the world, but this is what we've got to bind them by.
But at that point, once that final highest bidder has been unveiled, if you have a legitimate reason or for no reason at all, you can decide that you do not want to sell the property.
Okay.
So you always reserve, and that's reflected in your resolution, that you reserve the right to stop the process at any point.
Okay, thank you for that
Thank you.
clarification.
Yeah.
Now, I have a comment I want to make.
Yes, sir.
When we come to the point, we can say, we're going to investigate or see the past record of how a person can keep or kept his property. I think we're going a little bit too far.
I
Yeah.
understand what you're saying, Commissioner Dillahunt, and it's not part of this motion for this property at all, so I do understand that concern. We
And
can
that's any
only,
property.
like
Yeah.
Jamie said, we can only put or maybe Steve said, we can only put the restrictions on it, and whoever's the highest bidder.
Regardless of
Yes.
where he come from.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So we have a motion and a second,
Mhm.
and if there's no more discussion, do we do a roll call vote for that, please?
Yes, please, ma'am.
Leander Morgan,
Yes.
Jimmy Dillahunt,
Yes,
Kip Paraguay,
Yes.
Beth Walker,
Yes.
Julie Tavara,
Yes.
Sharon Bryan,
Yes.
Steve Strickland.
Yes.
Very unanimous. Motion passed.
Thank you. May I ask, you're the executive director, so you're probably the one who's in charge of letting that person know how it passed tonight.
Yes.
I noticed they weren't here, and most people come to hear the vote the next meeting, so
I will definitely let him know.
thank you.
For sure.
Okay.
Okay, I'm still reporting.
Are you still reporting?
I'm still
Go ahead with that,
reporting,
Mr. Paragoy.
We thought it was time for an annual review of the 10 lots that the county conveyed to us, 18 months ago, I guess? Because in that conveyance from the county and the city of those 10 lots that we requested, there was a reversion clause, and there was also conversation about that we needed to utilize those lots in a certain time period to achieve the goals of the Redevelopment Commission. So we asked Seth to begin the process of evaluating and looking at those 10 lots that were conveyed to us and get an update together for us. So if we need to, we can report to the city and the county what's going on with that. For instance, the 2 lots that we have agreed to convey to Habitat for Humanity across the street from the Eubanks house were 2 of the lots that we got from the county, and they will be utilized for housing, which is our main goal. So that's, this is what we're doing with those lots that we have received from them. So Zed will be working on that. And he will give us updates on Eubanks and Walt Bellamy later in the agenda. And we discussed the fact that for our strategic planning meeting that we will probably be putting together a concept plan for what we do with A Street. A Street as a potential next location for us to consider housing opportunities. And we also discussed property acquisition targets within the redevelopment boundary that might help us consolidate properties and make them more attractive to developers and builders. Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Paragoy. Especially thank you because the next agenda item was to consider the resolution to approve the purchase of 808 and 810 Bern Street. And we've already done that, so.
We have initiated the upset bid process.
We have initiated the upset bid process.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. No, it's fine. And then the neighborhood working group, it's my understanding you did not have a meeting this month, is that?
We did not have a meeting, although I always ride around and I do speak with the neighbors in the community as relates to what's going on. There are currently no street projects with the city of New Bern that are currently going on. We have been seeing them come out doing some patchwork in some areas where it's been needed. Walt Bellamy really looks good with the houses that are being constructed. Construction always gets everybody excited.
It does.
And that's a good thing. The landscape is just a January landscape in the city of New Bern, in the Duffy Field, and the redevelopment area. And so it always, Mother Nature comes back every year and claims and takes its due. We could always be doing more. We are currently, and with the help of Mrs. Cooper, and we'll be getting in touch, what we're doing now is speaking with Marvin, some of the other groups. We're kind of going back and revisiting some of the things that we may not have done at the last cleanup, or why did we have the numbers, or why did we advertise it properly. And we're big this time on partnerships. And so what we're going to do is we're going to gain boots on the ground first, and then we're going to come up with how we can cover and how we can best maneuver through the city using public works, using the gentleman through the program from McFadden isn't doing it anymore, but they always give us some of the guys who are on good behavior to be able to come out. I think there's some of the same guys who take care of parks and recs, but we're going to try to do this and do it in a time frame where you're going to see a difference. to where we can hit all of the different streets, not every single solitary street that's in the redevelopment area, but concentrate on where the help is most needed. So that's where our focus is now. Thank you.
Well, thank you. That's a very good update. And the next item agenda is the Wellness Working Group, which also had a note that they didn't meet this month, and Commissioner Wallace is not here. So,
I believe, do you have a statement that you want to share?
No.
Okay.
we would certainly love to hear it if you did, Commissioner Bryan.
That's okay.
Okay. The next,
Before you move on, I did talk to Commissioner Wallace before I got here this afternoon, and he did let me know that the subcommittee did meet. We're just waiting for,
Commissioner Bryant, that might be something that we talk about at a later point.
okay,
okay,
that's it.
thank you. The next is the project work group report from working on the rules and procedures. And I received a message from Commissioner Proctor today that she was traveling out of work and that she felt like she was a little over halfway done with that, working through that.
Okay.
And so I asked her to give me a call when she gets back in town so we can discuss the best way to move forward. I don't want to bury somebody there. And then the next one is the project work group for the planning retreat. And
Yeah, we talked a little bit this week about it, and we're still trying to, I think we're trying to iron out one other person to come and speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we'll have a couple of speakers. The proposed date, which I'll talk a little bit more about in my report, is January 27th, as opposed to the February date as of our last meeting. There were quite a few commissioners who would not be able to make the February date, so the concern was quorum. We did get a confirmed quorum via email to me amongst the commission. So we should have a quorum at the January 27th date.
okay, we'll look forward to that. That's this month.
Yeah,
That's
in
good.
a couple of weeks we'll be at it again, guys.
And we're hoping to have an agenda sent to you before the meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
That'd be great.
And that will be a public meeting, as a quorum will be held, and location and all that will be posted online in accordance with the general statute and what Attorney Bullock tells me I need to do.
Okay.
Excellent.
You
Okay.
may take some action about that later on tonight.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Bryan. That takes us right to you, Mr. Huff, with the new business
All right.
and your
Well,
updates. And
Well, we will start with the redevelopment calendar amendment. As stated, after our last meeting, a number of commissioners had concern that they wouldn't be able to make it. We were concerned with overall quorum numbers, and so the idea is that we would amend the overall redevelopment commission calendar to reflect a strategic planning session on January 27th, and if that is the will of the commission, we will need a motion to carry it in order to make that change.
And you might want to add, I don't know if you've discussed this, but a time for the meeting, the proposed meeting on January 27th? Has that been determined?
I believe it's 9 to 12.
Okay.
9 to 12
Mhm.
on January 7th is the
On
proposed.
January 27th, which is a Saturday, just for everyone's information.
So the motion, I think, would be to amend the regular schedule of meetings to add a meeting on January 27th at 9 a.m. to be held in the City Hall courtroom, and to remove the February 17th regular meeting.
Okay. Because that was the date of the original strategic planning, was
Correct.
February 17th.
We're not going to have the strategic planning meeting in this courtroom, are we?
Or wherever you have it.
We had said, I believe Commissioner Parham, you correct me if I'm wrong, we had said we wanted to have it at Development Services.
Yeah,
good. So we can have some working area
Right.
to, okay.
So the motion would be to amend the regular schedule of meetings to add a strategic planning meeting on January 27th at 9 a.m. in the Development Services Conference Room, and to remove the previously calendared February 17th meeting.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to amend the calendar as Mrs. Bullock has said twice. I do have a question. We did not have another regularly scheduled meeting in February on the calendar, and we will now on the Tuesday night? I mean, the Wednesday night, the 14th, our usual night?
I serve at the pleasure of the commission. That is certainly your choice. I did not include that in my recommendation, but that is up to you.
Okay. So it's really just to change the strategic planning meeting and keep the rest of the calendar. All right, as the motion was and seconded. Is this a roll call vote, or can we vote?
You can do a voice vote.
Okay. All in favor of amending the calendar, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Okay, the motion carries, and our strategic planning session will be scheduled on January 27th and not February 17th.
Great. The other item on my list tonight is just to give a general update on the Walt Bellamy houses. I had a great pleasure of meeting with Channel 9 with our chairman, Beth. We got to tour all three properties. I'm really pleased to report to the commission tonight that as of this morning, siding is installed on one of the houses, and drywall is roughed in on one of the houses, and by the end of the week, all three will have drywall roughed in and siding done. Underground work for utilities has begun. I just want to say thank you to my colleagues, both in public works and utilities, for really helping us to put the Walt Bellamy houses, keep those moving forward. And of course, my sincere thanks to the IMEC group, who's been an absolute pleasure to work with. We are ahead of schedule, and so we do anticipate being able to go to market as early as late April, early May.
Excellent. Yeah, those houses, I will say, did look very good. I enjoyed walking through them with you earlier this week.
So that is the bulk of my report, unless any of you have questions. I will say on the Eubanks, on the Eubanks 911 Eubanks project, the only reason I left that out of my report this evening is because there's really nothing to report at this time. We're still working through CDBG regulations and those kinds of things with Habitat for Humanity, and we'll continue to do that. And as soon as there is something to report, I promise I will report it to this forum. Any
Thank
other
you for
questions
working
from the
on that.
commission?
I have one.
Sure.
What do you mean when you say be ready to go to market?
Excuse me?
Question is, what did you mean when you said they'll be ready to go to market? A potential buyer,
That is the goal, Commissioner Dillahunt, to dispose of these parcels through the sale.
so anticipate them selling them? Okay. And one more question
Sure.
about the contingency that you was holding. Has that been touched, or the contingency is still at our disposal?
That's a good question. George and I have a budget sit down scheduled for later next week to go over numbers, and I'll make sure in my February report I provide a financial update across the board for the Redevelopment Commission.
For the construction.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for everything, for
Okay.
all our projects open. So we'll be ready for a report at that time.
Okay.
One more question. I think you said you were going to talk to Community Action. Do you have a report or any information that you could give us on that?
Only want to executive director and I, who is Katisa Head, had a meeting in late November. We toured a couple of our parcels, talked about priorities of the commission and priorities of coastal community action, and we are diligently working on figuring out a project to bring to this commission where we can partner. I do believe that coastal community action is a very, very good and strategic partner, and Katisa Head is very excited about the work that we're doing here in New Bern. So it was a very promising lead, and we'll continue to work on what potential that might hold for the future.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Hawes? All right, well, the last thing on our agenda is a closed session, and I believe we need to go into closed session to discuss
What's the number?
some,
What's the legal number for that?
It's statute, something, 43.
Didn't realize we were going into closed session tonight, so give me 1 second.
sorry.
Pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143, 318, 11A5, to discuss the potential acquisition of real property.
Thank you.
Is that
And
a
we need
motion,
a
Mr.
motion
Crump?
to do that.
So
Is that a
moved.
motion? Okay. And a second?
Second.
All right, thank you for a second. A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Let's go into closed session, turn everything off.
Give a minute for Robbie to get.
We can do that right here. I'll turn it.
What day are we talking?
They wait.
We are live.
Because they're politicians.
Okay, we are live. Is there any additional business before we leave? I think Commissioner Strickland is looking at the calendar in terms of when we could have a regularly scheduled meeting in February.
Yes, ma'am. I would just kind of eyeballing things and noticing that we do not have a scheduled meeting in February following the change of our strategic planning session. Just so business does not languish, I would like to have a meeting in February, seeing that the 14th is Valentine's Day. I would make a motion that we schedule a regular meeting for Thursday, February the 15th.
Mr. Strickland, did you make the original motion to amend the regular scheduled calendar?
I did not.
Was that Mr. Pericourt?
Yes.
Okay. Since we're revisiting that action, it may be more appropriate if Mr. Pericourt is inclined to make that motion. So do you rescind your motion, Mr. Strickland?
I rescind.
No, just copy it the same way, because I'm going to say the same thing he did.
So Mr. Strickland has rescinded his motion, and Mr. Pericourt's motion is to amend the regular schedule of the board to include a strategic planning session on January 27th at 9 a.m. at Development Services.
15.
Oh, yeah, but
Yeah.
we're doing the whole thing.
She's doing the whole thing.
And to add a regular meeting on February 15th at 6 p.m. in the City Hall courtroom. Is that your motion, Mr. Pericourt?
Yeah.
And to remove the previously scheduled meeting of February 17th. That's your motion.
Of February 17th?
Yes,
That was your
Yes,
first
that's
strategic
right,
plan session.
yes.
Everybody understand? Is there a second? I'm sorry, Madam Chair, that's,
I love the way
Second.
you positioned that there, Steve. I think that was very well done with,
So I'll second it.
yeah.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to keep a regularly scheduled meeting in the month of February, in summary. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say no. The ayes have it, and the motion carries, and so we will have a regularly scheduled meeting on February 15th.
and January 27th.
And January 27th is our strategic planning session, which is a regularly scheduled meeting in our calendar. Okay. If there's no other business, can I
Make a
get a motion
motion
to
we
adjourn?
adjourn.
Oh, thank you, Commissioner Parham. We have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Oh, we have a second.
That was slow.
It was.
I'm just waiting for somebody else to have the opportunity to get their name on the minute.
We have a motion and a second. If there's any further discussion, see there's some head shaking. No further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the motion carries and we are adjourned. Thank you.
Good to see you, neighbor.